Yo, someone send my condolences to HomDG. You are one of the greatest soldiers we've ever had. I salute you. Hello there, Flip here, and today a very different video from what I normally do. But I actually feel like this is something important to talk about for the wider Genshin scene, and especially for what my content is focused on, being pre-release TC. As one of the most prominent figures in the leak scene, and by extension the pre-release theory crafting scene, HomDGCat has just been, well, not just been, but has been sued by Hoyoverse, and the details of the case have just become more public. So I'm just going to be looking at and talking about the lawsuit and anything interesting in it as I've read it. It was only 45 pages long, which is surprisingly short, and then I'm going to talk about what this means for the wider leak scene and how this isn't really going to change anything. But before we do that, as always, if at any point during the video you're entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta, and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to my lovely channel members. I hope that in your near future that none of you guys will be getting sued. Feel like that's not a great position to be in, but who am I to say? And there's going to be no sponsor for this video, so let's just get into it. Now, one thing I found really interesting about the case is that HomDG doesn't live in China or Singapore. This was a civil case filed in Atlanta. One of the many things that made leakers feel safe is that they didn't really think that Hoyoverse had a legal grasp outside of China. But with this lawsuit and just how hard Hoyoverse came down on HomDG, it seems that even if you leak outside of China that you're still very liable to being sued. And in fact, the very act of HomDG getting sued caused a ton of leakers to just pack it up. Even another leaking group, Mortis Leaks, just decided to pack it up entirely and delete all of their messages since they're not safe overseas. And it's very likely that depending on the results of this case that other leakers will follow suit. Now, to actually dive into the lawsuit, one of the reasons why they're pushing so hard for HomDG is due to the fact that he's pretty much just the most popular leaker currently for Hoyoverse stuff, having a Telegram group with almost 100k members, his website which is one of them is referenced, and one of the reasons why Hoyoverse decided to come down so hard on him is that he essentially tied a payment QR code to his website, which Hoyoverse most likely saw as him trying to profit off of leaks, and hence this whole fiasco. And when I say Hoyoverse, I'm of course talking about their legal team, in which they then talk about the damages that leaking brings to their games and business, as it makes competitors aware of what Hoyoverse is going to cook up in the next few months, and when they're dropping characters, which could give them a leg up in information to try and compete with Hoyoverse better. And that actually isn't really something I've ever really thought about, but yeah, I can see how that can be a risk to Hoyoverse. My only real contention is that leaks are usually like, what, 5 to 6 weeks before the update actually drops. I doubt there's enough time for a competitor to make a meaningful plan against Hoyoverse to do something. And then funnily enough, they actually talk about doom posting and how people's negative public opinions can hurt the view of the update, especially when in beta in an unreleased state. Also, side note, I just find it really funny how Hoyoverse says it takes a lot of measures to have good security for the betas, but no, the security isn't good at all, and it's been about the same for what, the past 5 years now. They have not tried to keep any of this shit under wraps. And then this part is really interesting. For those of you who don't know, HomDG wasn't a part of Varka's beta cycle at all, and in fact they stopped posting leaks to their website as a whole, which happened about a month ago now. And then HomDG tried to make this excuse as if, oh, I just got bored of leaking stuff. And then when people started speculating that, oh, maybe Hoyoverse like tried to sue him or Hoyoverse got him, he kept denying that. And then other leaking groups came in to also deny that claim too. And the timing of everything was so horrible because HomDG just posted a Yun Li cosplay, and people thought him showing his face is what made Hoyoverse get him, which was a pretty funny theory, but we actually have clarification on that now. So apparently Hoyoverse didn't actually want to sue HomDG, and in fact they have been sending him multiple cease and desist letters, emails, they've been FedExing him, and because Hoyoverse has a copyright to their own games, they've also been sending copyright takedown notices to the HomDG website, and this was happening in late December and even before. But HomDG just kept ignoring the notices and the takedown requests, and then on December 29th he responded to the cease and desist, saying that he disagreed with some of Hoyoverse's claims and would only comply with some of their demands. Hoyoverse wanted him to completely delete his Telegram group and his website, but instead HomDG kept both of those things up and was like, alright bro, I just won't leak from now on. And then he also passed ownership of his website to someone else, but him only partially meeting their demands is what made Hoyoverse just go full scorched earth and led to this lawsuit. So this actually could have all just been avoided if HomDG decided to take down his stuff. He just didn't want to, and his stubbornness in taking down his website is about to cost him so much money. They are claiming that from the HomDG website and Telegram that he has cost Hoyoverse 75,000 in damages. 75,000 gold pieces of Mora. Not even a ley line would cover that. And on top of that, if they win the case, they're also going to make bro pay all of those legal fees too, in which I don't even want to think about how much money that is. But regardless, even just looking at the base rate of 75,000, Hoyoverse wipes their ass with that money. In the past 30 minutes, they've probably made 5 times that. Hoyoverse is not doing this because leaking is damaging their bottom line. They're probably trying to manage leaks more effectively. And of course, the best way to do this isn't to attack every leaker. If you just go after the biggest one and make an example out of them, as we saw with Mortis leaks, just the threat of a lawsuit is already enough of a deterrent. And I don't know, I feel like them doing this around the time Varka is coming out, who is not that impressive of a character compared to what we've had prior. Maybe it is because they can guide the Doom posting narrative much better. Or hell, going back to the first thing they mentioned, there have been so many different new open world gacha games coming out that are able to compete with Hoyoverse to an extent. Maybe that's another thing they want to crack down on and control, so it can be harder to gain a market advantage on them. Regardless of what they do, leaks aren't going to really go anywhere. HomDG wasn't here at all for the Varka beta, yet we still got all the information on him. The problem isn't even necessarily the leakers. What makes leaks so easy to access is the beta applications. Anyone is able to apply and get into a beta, and they're like tens of thousands that do each cycle. And then these beta files are hosted on the client's PC, and then these clients can very easily send the beta downloads to anyone, which is how all these leakers get the information, even if they don't apply for the beta themselves. So unless Hoyoverse decides to change that process, it doesn't matter how many leakers they sue, those leaks are always going to come out. If they wanted to control leaks, they would change their application process, but instead it stayed the exact same since the game's release. And speaking of that whole process actually, Hoyoverse is not just coming for HomDG, but there's also been 10 other co-conspirators alongside him, of which their identities can't be confirmed that Hoyoverse knows about, that have been helping to funnel leaks and information to HomDG, and they are also being lumped into this case and being sued as well. And the only real involvement we can gather they've had in this is just downloading the beta and sending it to HomDG, and that's like actually insane. But if you think about it, it does kind of make sense. HomDG isn't the one applying to these betas, he's just getting the download link from other people. So of course, if HomDG is liable for spreading the leaks, the people supplying him with the leaks are also equally as guilty. And I don't see a reality in which this case is lost by Hoyoverse, so their lives are probably cooked as well. The next part of the lawsuit covers what I discussed about the beta and how you download it, how HomDG has been extracting information from the beta. But yeah, I forgot to mention this, when you do enter a Hoyoverse beta, you sign an NDA and you also attach your ID to the NDA. And then there's a long list of terms they talk about. I have applied and got accepted to partake in a Hoyoverse beta, but the terms horrified me, so I didn't end up signing anything or sending my ID. But one of the terms that still sticks with me is that it was like, it's okay if you have talked about leaks before this, but after you like sign and send in that NDA, if you ever talk about leaks ever in the future, you can be held liable. It was something along those lines. So like, let's say you've signed that NDA and there's a leak discussion happening on the Genshin Leak subreddit. Even if you yourself didn't spread the information or are discussing information from your own beta, the very fact that you're engaging in leak discussion under NDA can hold you liable. And that terrified me, so I didn't decide to join the beta. Moving on, Hoyoverse decided to then pop their Bennett buffed, melted, Julonin shredded elemental burst and invoke the TOS, in which they're like, yeah, HomDG probably played Genshin or Star Rail and signed this. And under the TOS, you like can't leak stuff. And hell, going back to what I said prior, another prominent leaker, Seal Leaks, has just stepped down, which is a pretty big hit to both Genshin and Star Rail's leak scene. Now that's pretty much it for the lawsuit. The rest of it does kind of just thread the same grounds, doing a summary of all the things I've talked about, and just saying that they believe HomDG and all the 10 defendant does acted in bad faith and knew they were acting in bad faith. And then here's a bunch of requests listed. They want the HomDG site and Telegram to be taken down. down. They want HomDG and his associates to never do this again. And then they want their legal fees to be covered. And yeah, that's it. All in all, this isn't really going to kill the leaking scene, as I said, because unless Hoyoverse changes their entire infrastructure with how they handle betas, the leaking's only going to continue. It's just going to be under different aliases, and people are going to be more anonymous since they know they can be tracked even overseas. Something similar did happen years ago, but the leaking scene has only gotten bigger since then. So again, even if the current faces we have leave, there is only going to be newer faces to take up the mantle. And regarding HomDG specifically, I really think that the reason he handled this so poorly is that, like with most leakers who are panicking now, they didn't think Hoyoverse would have the reach to go and sue people overseas. This dude was literally letting these cease and desist letters just pile up. Then he cross-dressed, tried to give his website to someone else, and then is getting folded by Hoyoverse. Besides that, I don't really think I have much else to add, so with that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on this whole situation, as I would love to hear it and I respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, please don't get sued. Thank you so much for the continued support. Thank you to everyone else for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.